I have the pleasure of introducing Victoria Burton Hathaway, who serves Bob Lucido team of Keller Williams Lucido Agency as Director of Silver Group, which is the team's international seniors real estate division. Victoria's expertise is in guiding and educating clients and providing resources for retirement living options, downsizing, estate sales, elder law and estate planning, veterans benefits, and more. Her background is in communications and healthcare, combined with caregiving for her 105-year-old grandmother and her parents' journeys through Alzheimer's and memory care for her father, and new and happy chapters in the independent living for her mother. This led to her passion for advocacy, education, and the value of community and culture change for older adults. She's a lifelong resident of Howard County, and Victoria enjoys spending time with her family and two unusually calm Jack Russell Terriers.
Uh-huh.
And with that, I'll give the mic to Victoria.
That's great, thanks. We'll see if those two unusually calm Jack Russell Terriers make a liar out of me this morning. So they're here under my desk, and if we get lucky, we won't have the UPS guy. So,
you know how that works. You know how that works.
Looks nervously toward the window. It's great to be here with you this morning. I welcome the questions that may come. If I'm touching on topics that you have your own knowledge or background or professional experience with, by all means jump in. I relish the spotlight only in that it gives us the opportunity to collaborate and to share stories and to go out together and do better and leave it better than we found it. I am a pretty big nerd, but I shy away from the PowerPoints. My style is more conversational, more consultative. And so the way that you're experiencing me this morning is similar to the way that the clients experience me when I get to go on my visits and do my thing. To put some structure around my role, you've got the background and a little bit of, some insight now into the passion. A lot of what I do, I feel, is legacy to my parents, to my grandmother. I didn't see this career coming when my dad got sick and I was the kid who stepped up to do the legal, the medical, the financial, the placement, the house full of things. Didn't really realize that I was out there earning my stripes, and was recruited by the Lucido team. Their business was growing exponentially, and they wanted to keep always adding layers of service and layers of specialty in their real estate business. And what they were seeing was increasing numbers of older adults and families going through this process of, sale, downsize, move to senior living. And they were experiencing it as sort of deer in the headlights. So they said, look, you've got the background in communications, you've worked in healthcare for many years, you've gone through this, scenario with your dad. About 6 months later, my mom, kind of a reaction formation to my dad's illness and his death, said, I don't think I can continue to live on my own this way. And we had some really hard mother-daughter conversations about her expectations and what she had done as a person in her generation, born in 33, she's now 88. She did everything for her mother, and she was looking for that pound of flesh to come off of me. And, she had been a stay-at-home daughter. I was a working woman, raising kids, had a puppy, had a house to run. And so, that ultimately led to me doing something I don't normally do, which is to be a pusher. Real estate is famous for, increasing urgency and pushing people, and all of that can be really good and useful. That's just not who I am. So I would go to bed every night with a dry mouth and my knees knocking, thinking I'm pushing her to sell her home and move into senior living, into retirement community. And so she ultimately did. It's a fun story because she, landed on her feet. She figured it out. She was pursued by a lovely man on campus, and they've been together since 2012. Very different scenario from my dad's move into memory care. Nevertheless, the Lucido team was watching me do my thing. And so they said, would you think about creating a program? So I spent many, many months researching, and I came with a pretty tall order. I wanted credentialing. I wanted education. I wanted philanthropy. I wanted volunteerism. I wanted to have, kind of all the keys that they could give me, specific examples. Like if you have to engage a realtor in order to send the stager, I wanted to be able to send the stager before the realtor was engaged. Just every little thing that I could, I wanted to unlock it programmatically and make it real. So I started in 2013. It's been a pretty good success. People love it. The agents love it. The clients love it. And it's actually caused a pretty significant amount of groups and teams around the country to want to affiliate with our team. So, proud to say that Keller Williams is the largest real estate company in the world, and we now are the largest Keller Williams team in the world. And my boss is that guy. So I have my real estate license because I had to. I have zero passion for real estate per se. And my entire focus and passion is on the older adult and the family and best practices for them. So I'm working in the real estate world and everything passes through that lens. That's my paradigm, as Joe would say, but it's not my thing. I've never sold a house and I never hope to sell a house. So working as staff, working full-time and being the only one who does what I do, it's 24/7. I take it with me on vacation, but all these years later, I love it that much. So to kind of get out of myself and to not fuss about the spotlight and to be in front of you talking about it, that's kind of how I got to where I am, where I'm coming from as I speak to you about it. And, I'd love to, I'm sure there's probably at least one other realtor who's here with us this morning. So, you please weigh in, and it's going to be fun to know that you're here as I talk about these things, because you're going to have the insight and the expertise. And, I'm hoping to get some thumbs up from you in terms of, the things that I talk about. My struggle with talking about real estate and seniors and educating is that a lot of times my presentation comes out as warning people off of what real estate does wrong. I like to bring the positivity. I think that real estate done right is done as a helping profession. And I think that realtors are remarkable people who, there's almost like a case management aspect to real estate done right, particularly for seniors. So I am a huge fan of the agents. But I will say that I've been doing it long enough, and in my niche practice, which is exclusively seniors, I've seen plenty of wrong things. And so it's, turn that frown upside down, make it fun to get in there, educate. And I'm coming in the spirit of collaboration, also in the spirit of if we're all working together as senior serving professionals, allied professionals, then the more we know about each other's businesses and the way to do it right, the better job we can do for the actual individuals we're serving, and the better we can do in network with each other. So that's kind of, that'll be my jumping off point. Any questions to this moment? It's different. It's when I show up, people say, you're not the realtor, you're not an attorney, you're not the move manager, you're not the stager, you're not a social worker, what are you again? And by the time I get through my presentation, they're, usually giving me a hug at the door, and they understand that, my company's genius was to try to have me in this role, making sure that they're connected. So I'm going to
bring the best of all those things together. It's an amalgam.
Thank you. And, the magic of being able to be in a role where it's all about being the orchestra conductor to all of the things that you all do. There is so much joy in sitting there and knowing all the, the fellow professionals, and just, relaxing in the consult, knowing that I can check the box for this and this and this and this, tell them where to drop the flag, and then make it real by providing actual referrals to them, by the end of the appointment. So it feels pretty magic. There's a lot of joy. I think we're, all of us together are making it better, making it different. So I'm going to bring us back to real estate. Yes. Meryl, you're on mute.
I just say I have found such wonderful respect for real estate agents. I hear about people saying, I'm going to sell the house myself. There's just the surprises that can occur. And Rebecca is my real estate agent. We still haven't closed yet. And it's been weeks because it's been one surprise after the next. And you find the right real estate agent. And Laura, this is not to say anything against you because I'm just getting to know you, okay? Rebecca's been in my life for many years already. Pick a good real estate agent and one you know that's going to take genuine concern for you, because it makes a big difference. The heart must be completely embedded. Thank you.
Yeah, agree 100%. People don't understand the value, and it's a shame because, you know, particularly in this kind of market, you know, people can be kind of rude, and to go to an appointment and to present and to be told, well, a monkey could sell a house in this environment, in this market, you know, and I will push back if I have to. And so my most recent example of that is, you know, yes, great. Okay. Are you prepared for all the things that might happen along the way, and to have no advocacy, no expertise covering you, and, you know, make it real. A $700,000 selling price and two offers come, one is $765 and one is $790. And the $765 is cash, you know, so you're helping the client understand that's actually the better offer. But the buyers are in China. 12% of our buyers here now are international. So there's a 13-hour time lag, and 2 nights before closing, the basement flooded. So now, you know, I'm on the sidelines. I've done my part, and I'm watching the agent handle this transaction. So now you've got escrow, you've got money tied up, you've got vendors coming in to fix the basement, you've got addenda, and we finally closed it to the point that the cash was in the bank, the money had transferred, but the addendum still wasn't signed. So the wonderful middle-aged daughter is shielding the older adult parents who are the sellers from all of this. And, you know, we're all running around having kittens, you know, trying to get this thing across the finish line, and to help somebody understand that, yeah, you might be able to put a house out there and put it under contract, but then what? So if they were prepared to handle this kind of a scenario, go for it. You're a better man than I am. So yeah, you know, just anything that I can do ever to help people understand the true value of a realtor, and that just like with a physician, you know, if all goes well, you're not paying them for their minutes, you're paying them for their years. And what is the value of that? And that translates into commission. So at any rate, I'll bring it. It's a good segue back to, you know, just the actual nuts and bolts of real estate. But again, stay with me through the lens of older adult. Market analysis is, you know, a realtor comes, and I always tell my older adult clients and prospects, have 3 consults, because, you know, you've met one realtor, and everybody has their own style, their own personality. The brokerages are different. You've got an apple to an apple, but the apples are different unto each other. And what value proposition the agents bring. If you say, you know, get to the meat and potatoes and tell me about my property, then you can have anything from a realtor who shows up and they could be a master agent and they know exactly what they're talking about. And their market analysis consists of looking around and saying, yeah, you've got a great house here. I can sell it for you probably within 2 weeks and you're worth $450,000. That's great. And they're probably spot on, no harm, no foul. But if they don't bring a proper data-based market analysis, then the client is going on faith, going on trust. And if the market changes, if the market doesn't respond the way that realtor predicted, then, you know, it's almost like the realtor doesn't have any fallback, that they didn't bring data, they didn't put it on paper. So when I'm, again, you know, always through the lens of speaking to older adults, you know, try to think about asking for a proper market analysis. Don't settle for anything less. Make sure that the numbers are being looked at. A good market analysis is done pretty much like an appraiser would do it. You know, go a mile out, go 3 months back. You're looking at the same square footage and floor plan, and a rancher's not a colonial, trying to get that apple to apple experience so that you can really use the science, use the numbers to dial in on the market value of the house. And then that is your jumping off point for the, you know, the sale price. So it's, you know, agents do it all different ways. Older adults, if they haven't sold a house in 30, 40, 50 years, I actually once had a woman who was my oldest client. She was 100. She lived in a 100-year-old house. She was born in the house. She never lived anywhere else. I mean, you can't make this up. But if people aren't educated about this process, there's room for trouble.
Please mute yourself.
Steve,
Thank you for calling the help desk. Please choose from one of the following options. If your bridge is down, no one is.
I'll keep going.
I got it, I think.
Okay, awesome. So any questions about that as a topic, how market analysis presented by a realtor can be so varied, so different, and how the senior client is exposed if it's not a database, robust, almost like an appraiser analysis. What happened?
This is Rebecca. I would just echo that, to have those pieces of paper with pictures and numbers and things like that is extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the spirit of not only service to the client, but also service to other professionals, certainly when you come as the agent, if you don't do it that way, you haven't covered yourself. I can think of an example where, we went, the agent took all the data, we reviewed it, the super smart, like securities analyst son was in the room, and that's even better, even more gold standard to have family in the room. Just like when you go to an important doctor meeting, your eyes and ears, you almost can't take it all in, and you need an advocate there. So that's fantastic. Nevertheless, the selling price was agreed on, and they chose to go at the high end. As you probably all know, realtors can't dictate the price. You present and you can show a range and give the guidance, and then it's up to the client to decide. And so the market did shift from the time that selling price was started. And that house didn't sell and didn't sell and didn't sell. And the person had moved out, which is my favorite thing, when they move out and then we're able to have the selling process happen. But of course, that means they're carrying the property and they're carrying the new place where they're living. And everybody was having kittens over it. And I can remember thinking to myself, thank goodness that we went off of the data, we showed everything on paper. Because we can't control that then the market shifts and now they're priced too high and we are coming and talking about a reduction. That smoke and mirrors approach really is a hideous way to do it in these kinds of situations. So that would be my jumping off point to talk about what industry jargon is buying the listing. This is when the realtor shows up and says, okay, you've got realtor A and realtor B. Realtor A says, you've got a beautiful house. You don't need to do a thing to it. I can sell it in a heartbeat and you're worth $450. And realtor B shows up and says, okay, you've got olive colored shag carpet. You've got wallpaper in every room. The market's starting to shift. I think that you're probably worth 375, 400 maybe. And we might want to talk about, positioning you better by doing fresh walls and fresh flooring. These are the things that your buyers are going to be objecting to. Well, I can tell you the number of times that realtor A gets hired, gets the job, because they did what we in the industry call buying the listing. They told them they didn't have to do a thing. They told them that it's going to be worth $50,000 more than it probably is ultimately going to be worth. So the client picks that agent. And then if you run that scenario out, what happens is the market responds by objecting to the yucky floors and the yucky walls. They see the cost that they're going to incur by having to handle that themselves. And they start to, make lowball offers. And, we're not even getting a $400,000 offer. And the agent comes back to the client and says, wow, what a shame. The market's not responding. I think you have a great house. We should probably drop you from 450 to 400. Well, now they've had to reduce in price. The house is stale. As we say in real estate, a house is not like bread. Stale is bad. It's not like wine, where wine improves with age. So then you've got that experience of people kind of giving the house side eye and saying, wow, it's, days on market. It's been on the market for 2 months now. What's wrong with it? And the agents who help the buyers are very smart, and they will come and they will say, let's look at days on market. This has been on sale for 60 days. Let's give them a lowball offer. Let's start chiseling away at this, because that's negotiation. I mean, it's diametric opposition. The goals of the buyer and the seller are in opposition. So it's a shame. And, you know, the realtor who comes and tells the truth and says, I am your advocate. I'm going to tell you in that listing appointment what I see that's wrong with your house and what the buyers are going to say. That to me is best practice real estate, but it comes with the risk that they're going to look at you and think, you're making it hard for me. I'm going to pick the other guy. So I'm on the warpath about that, just to educate people ahead of the game that, you know, sometimes if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And you'd be better off working with somebody who's going to tell you the truth. Any comments?
Victoria, this is
Yep.
Laura. I just want to say thank you so much for saying that, because that's one of the reasons that Jan and I started looking at this market, because we saw that so often, especially with seniors who didn't want any stress in their lives.
Yep.
And they thought, oh, I'm just going to sell it for this massive amount of money. And then we would see this. So thank you.
My pleasure. You know, the more we can get the word out, you know, the problem is people think it's very simple. And when you start to really understand the industry and best and worst practices, it can become pretty complex. And if you're there and it's a sales call and, you know, people just want it at the 100 level and you're trying to teach them at the master's or the PhD level, and people's eyes are starting to glaze over, and they just want the easy path. It's very frustrating. And so thanks for that feedback, you know, that we're all out there trying to educate and get a best outcome.
Victoria,
Sir.
one of the things that you said a little while ago, I think is very instructive, and that is, if everything works perfectly, anyone can sell the house. The problem is, when does anything work perfectly? And when when it doesn't, that's when it's like trying to do brain surgery on yourself.
Funny you should mention that, because you know, my boss's mother was privileged to have surgery done by Dr. Carson, you know, probably 20 years ago. And my boss said, so Dr. Carson, you know, could I do that? Like, could I get in there and do that? And Dr. Carson said, if everything went well, you probably could get in there. I could probably tell you, clamp this and cut that and whatever. But he said, when all hell breaks loose, again, that's just like in real estate. You're not getting paid for your minutes. You're getting paid for your years. And, you know, to think that somebody will say, if you sold my house within 20 minutes of it going on the market, I don't think that you should make, you know, a 2.5% commission on a $1.2 million house. And I think to myself, do you want to hear the story about the buyers from China and the flooded basement? You know, because that realtor was working around the clock and saved the deal and got those people, you know, $65,000 more than the house was priced. They paid their commission by marketing and selling that house. So it's, yes, I'm up so close to it. My hands are never in the transactions, but I am there in full support and I see what happens, you know, in the operating room. I think that, you know, we all learn best by stories. So just to kind of close out that whole buying the listing story, I'll give you a one that will at least make the realtors laugh. We had a woman who hired us. We were sent by a senior living retirement community, and, you know, always really proud when that happens. Did the truthful presentation of the market analysis, told her where the faults were, brought her a buyer at full price. She didn't like that price. She said, no, thank you. She fired us. That happens. And she brought in her friend realtor. Okay, so there you're opening the door to damage to the friendship. I always say, you know, if you have a nephew or you have a good friend, think about how valuable the relationship is to you, because real estate can really get rough and rocky and be the Wild West. So think about that. So she brought her friend, the realtor, in, who proceeded to sell the house for less than the offer that we bought. And she, you know, it had been 6 months and she took the offer, and, you know, there's never any follow-up. You know, you can't circle back on that and say, really? But these are things that happen in the world of real estate. And at the end of the day, you know, my heartache was, here's a senior who needed every penny. We did all the things. It wasn't good enough. And then she got a worse outcome. So real estate can be weird, is the moral of that story. Another thing that I'm on the warpath about, and again, particularly through that lens of seniors real estate, I mean, this happens to all ages of people, but always on the warpath for seniors, in the jargon, is pocket listing. So a pocket listing is when you're interviewing the realtor and the realtor says, oh, Mrs. Smith, you're stressed out about having to get your house ready for the market. You're stressed out about having photographs and having it be public. You're stressed out about having to open the door and have people come trooping through. The big lie in real estate is I've got your buyer. And really what the realtor wants to do is to get your business. They want to get you your listing so that you agree to sell the house, using their services, and they tell you that they've got a buyer. And I think that's like the check is in the mail a lot of times. Sometimes they actually do have the buyer. They work with investors, or they've got somebody that they've known for 20 years is trying to get into that last house on the cul-de-sac, or they know the next door neighbors and the neighbors want their kids to move in and be like a family compound on the street. All these cool things that can happen, and it can be very truthful. Here's the rub: if you tell someone that they don't have to market their house, put it on the MLS, do all the things, and you don't tell them that if they do it quiet, if they do it pocket, if they don't make it public, they can set their price. You can bring them a buyer who will pay their price. What you forfeit is the opportunity to ever know what price you might have gotten. So certainly in this market, I mean, we're having houses that are, it's an $800,000 house that's selling for $925,000. I just told you about the 700 that came in for 765 and 790. I mean, extraordinary cash windfalls, normally proportionate to the sale price of the house. But when you tell an older adult that they don't have to market the property, what's your price, Mrs. Smith? 500,000? I can bring you a $500,000 buyer tomorrow. And that is truthful, but you didn't take them all the way on the learning curve and help them understand that they might have had $600,000 for that house. Nerding out on the industry. Also, what that realtor who did that pocket listing and didn't tell that person that they might have forfeited $100,000 of profit, that realtor is not having to market the property. There's a cost to that. There's a cost in terms of hours and time and shoe leather that they didn't have to do all the things, scramble the jets, send the drone photographer, send the photographer, put the ad in the paper. So it's a real, I think it's, you're kind of hoodwinking senior clients when you tell them that. The other thing that we'll see happen is the senior seller is very proud of their house, loves the property, lots of good memories. And the realtor will come and say, this is a tear down. And they will, buy it at a low price, tear it down, do a new build spec house for, $1.5 million. And they paid the seller $800,000 for their house. I mean, crunch those numbers. And it's almost like, it's not so much negligence as it is, it's almost like a form of abuse. So I really, if people say, I understand, I just want 500,000, I don't care about, setting up the flagpole. The value to me of having a private sale is worth $100,000. And I say, okay, it's your decision. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am here to make sure that everybody knows where the risks are and where the fortunes are when somebody's not, they're telling them a half truth. So, so that's not okay. Looking at my note cards. Fair housing has also become a problem with this pocket listing part. The federal fair housing rules, in the 1960s and discrimination,
the web, social media, and more.
Keeping some people out and letting other people in. Separate from seniors real estate, separate from my soapbox, the real estate industry itself at the federal level is now beating the drum about how pocket listings are antithetical to fair housing. So what that means is the realtor becomes the one who's in charge of who gets to be the buyer. So they can play, the puppet master, the decider on who they're going to bring and put in front of Mrs. Smith and who's going to get to have access to purchase that house. That's not fair housing. If you put it out there, you market it, and the best buyer, the best offer comes, that's fair housing. So questions or comments on that? I will stick up, again, and be the contrarian and tell you stories about where I think it can be wonderful and where it does make sense. The litmus test is that we told them that if they do it this way, they will never know the top price that they could have gotten. So my two best examples are, had a client who She was the second wife. The first wife was, the ex-wife was still around, and the daughter from the first marriage was still around, and the husband died. So you've got the second wife getting ready to sell the property, and the first wife is saying, you know, I have claim. He wanted me to have this house. He wanted our daughter to have this house. And the gal who is our client, Mrs., you know, second wife seller, is saying, I want to keep this as quiet as I can. You know, everything's proper. The will checks out, title checks out, deed checks out. Everything is clean as a whistle. But she doesn't want to sign in the lawn. She doesn't want it on the internet. She doesn't want it. So we have the hard conversation that if we do it this way and we bring her a buyer, you know, we're not going to be able to have that experience of competitive bids and escalation offers and all this good stuff. And she said, that's fine. I understand, and I'm willing to, you know, to take, you know, let those chips land as they are. So that was a good example of somebody who was fully informed but chose to do a quiet listing. Another one is it was a retiring physician and spouse moving, fortunate enough to be moving to a CCRC. They were adamant that they didn't want to do anything to the house. You know, part of our fiduciary, our diligence, is to explain to them, you know, there's normally four prices. You know, you can have your investor sale price, which is normally always the lowest profit. You can sell it as is, which is the next low profit. You can do a little bit of refreshing, which is going to get you more and a faster sale, normally based on market response. And the top shelf would be that you put money in to renovate it and package it for sale. And that is normally, our goal is to, you know, put in $1 and get back $2. And they were not having it, and they were starting to get worn out with us and our desire to present to them and do our diligence, you know, that they're moving into a community where a lot of other people have used us, that they're going to be having dinner and say, well, you know, how did you like that? And you had all this put in front of you, and we're accountable to get our words out and not be shut down by them. So long story short, they said, if we can sell it directly to an investor and we can close in 2 weeks, and we can take our cash and we can just take our toothbrushes, pajamas, and suitcases and move across the street to the community, that's how we want to do it. Well, you know, not rocket science to understand that they were well off enough that the, you know, $100,000 that they were leaving on the table doing it that way, it made sense for them. So, you know, we're not there to be the boss of them and to tell them what their goals should be. We're not mind readers. And I think, you know, normal is that real estate shows up and is coming through a bias of let's get it sold as fast as we can and let's get it sold for as much as we can. And then it falls back on the client to educate us and say, that's not my goal at all. It can sit for a year as long as I get my price. I'm not going to be able to sleep at night unless I do it that way. Or I can leave $100,000 cash on the table if you make it quiet and make it easy for me and do it this, you know, this very low impact way. So, you know, as they say, it all depends. Comments or questions? I think that it's one of, you know, my favorite topics to introduce to seniors in the consult is, you know, have you thought about whether or not you would like to sell and move or move and then sell? And a lot of times that gets you, you know, kind of eyes wide open, and they, you know, it's almost like they never thought about that. They're so stressed out by the entire prospect. They never thought about the fact that it is an option to do it that way. For me, it turns into a pretty deep dive, because then we're talking about a bunch of different things. We're talking about, you know, I was raised to appreciate every dime and to respect that. And, you know, you've got people that are almost having a settlement where there's no money coming out of it for them. I've had people say, Victoria, our biggest problem is we're going to die and leave too much money. So seeing that gamut, and, you know, that you can't always tell what's inside the book by looking at the cover, and coming with respect and not wanting to pry, you know, sort of going gently, but planting this seed. It comes from my origin story of wanting to keep people as healthy, safe, least stressed as possible on all the levels. So if I can paint a picture where somebody says, you know, tell me more, we say we would get you, you know, sorted and downsized and packed up and moved, set up in your new nest, and then unleash the selling process. As long as they are financially able, that's a pretty wonderful way to do things. And the financial coaching there can look like, you know, are you flush with savings and assets? Are we talking about having to break into your portfolio? Because, you know, we never want to coach anybody that that's the right way to go. All those tax implications and, you know, sweating the program of that timeline with those deadlines, taking money out, putting it back in. Sometimes people have a home equity line of credit that they've forgotten they have. Sometimes there are new companies out there now who are intentional about funding the bridge to retirement living specifically for seniors. And that's kind of a magic crayon that I'm thinking, where has that been for the last 10 years? I love knowing about that. So putting all that out there for them as a conversation, if I want to do that, and that sounds very attractive to me, but how am I actually going to make that real is something that I'm passionate about. And then when you pivot that back away from finance to real estate, it can turn into a conversation about, do they want to sell staged? And real estate really tells the value proposition of staging, and houses sell for this much more money and they sell this many days quicker. For me, coming with that heart just for the senior, I will be contrarian there, and I will talk about the value in selling vacant and empty and the market response to that. And, you know, make it truthful and or make it okay for them. We can also have conversations about hybrid. Let's stage it. Let's take the pictures and let's immediately start dismantling it the minute the pictures have been taken. So they're having their cake and eating it too. They're getting the images of a staged home in the brochures and on the internet, but they have been able to immediately start dismantling, moving out. And when the buyers actually come trooping through, you know, they're going to see boxes or they're going to see a house that's being emptied. So it's all about not making a cookie cutter and really, you know, meeting people where they are and using all the tools to help them. And even to make it granular in terms of staging, I will get in the way if there's a stager saying, you know, we'll put the potted plant here and put the ottoman there and put that thing on that wall. And I think you've just changed their floor plan. Right. And if they're used to navigating or they get up in the dark and go to the powder room, whatever they're doing, I don't want a health and safety thing to be happening just as an outcome of staging. So you've really got to have that older adult paradigm going at all times. Just making sure I'm not leaving anything out. Rent back becomes a part of that picture. Sometimes people will say, I want to sell, I need the cash in order to go to closing. If there's a large fee, a buy-in fee at, you know, typically the continuing care retirement communities. So then we'll be able to reassure them that, you know, the realtor has the reins. So the realtor has the control on the selling side to put it right out there. We're going to put your house up for sale in April. Your, you know, senior living apartment isn't going to be ready until June. We might sell it on day 3. But it's all going to be part of the negotiation where, you know, you do not have to vacate until June and your buyer can't come in until June. So let's talk about a rent back. So just using all the tools of the trade to accommodate the older adult seller. I want to go back to my theme of collaboration, and I want to tell a story about how all of us working together, this is kind of, you know, hitting you hard with granular information about seniors real estate. But when you go out into the field and you're working with move managers or elder law attorneys or in-home care providers or community providers, you know, I feel like this is all percolating. It's all out there. And the more we listen and learn about each other's industries, the more we can help. So this is a story about a move manager who's working inside the property of yet another retiring physician. And he is interviewing the Got Cash for Houses bail bonds guys. And the move manager knows, you know, a couple good realtors, one of which is our firm, and she's willing to insert herself for the good of her senior clients. So she poked her nose in and said, hey, doc, I heard you talking to the bail bonds cash for houses guys, you know, beware. So she had us call on the doc. And what we were able to do was to take 20 minutes to explain where that is fraught, where that becomes kind of like a scam or kind of an abuse situation. And so investors done wrong looks like this. And this is what these cash for houses guys were doing to the doc. We'd love to buy your house. We are investors. We do this all day long. We will bring cash. We will buy it from you in 2 weeks. You will have your money, sign the dotted line, and we will pay you. I want to make it real. In this case, I think they were offering $380. And so certainly they have a profit model, what it's going to take for them to renovate and market and do all the things. And they're usually looking back to get, 12, 15% profit. So 380, and the move manager is saying, please have Victoria and her group come through. They also work with investors. They'll treat you fairly. So I bring the investor, and the investor says, I see your place. Nice to meet you. I'll offer you 370. So the doc looks at us like, you just wasted my time. I'm a physician. I'm not the dumbest guy. Why would I take 370 instead of 380? You're both apple to apple. This is the part where it gets real. If you look at the contract that is put in front of the sellers by the guys that are doing it as a scam, as a sort of an abuse type situation, there's language in those contracts that says, sign here, 380. You agree to let us bring our engineer in and inspect the property. It's really just a home inspector. It's not an engineer. That guy goes through and finds all the wrong things. Well, the roof is on its last legs, and I see moisture in the basement, and I don't like the way that there's a crack in the, so it goes on and on and on. They find all the wrong things, and then they get out the calculator and they start to deduct what it's going to cost to fix those things. And suddenly the doc realizes he's already signed a contract to let the camel's nose in under the tent. And now he's going to get, 270 instead of 380 because of all these costly things that of course they're going to have to repair. Our guy standing there, he says, mine is 370. Yes. $10,000. Yes. Less, but it's firm. We don't open that door. We don't mess with people, blah, 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 blah. So the end of that story was that the doc got an education. The move manager did a good deed. We, did a fair, truthful deal. The man got his money in 2 weeks, and he got 370, not 380, but it wasn't this hideous experience. Yes, please, Laura.
Victor, I just wanted to add in the market where I work, I see that often with builders coming in. It's the same scenario. I'll have a client that said, oh, I'm going to sell my house to a builder. They're going to give me this amount of money. And it's the same thing, but they're going to do an engineering study. And that's where the price drops.
Yes.
So unless you have an advocate, I recently had a situation where they said, sorry, Laura, we're going with this one builder. And I said, please just let me see who else is out there. You want to go to a builder, but there's 80 builders competing. And we were able to get them and I said, if that's the best price, I'm out. Thank you. But, let's just see what we can do. And we got them significantly over that builder because they were going to do so it's the exact same thing. So
it's so cool that, we're working on this together, and we're working to protect seniors and even not older adults. If you don't know this industry and you don't know where the scams are and how the game is run, you're out there like a lamb to the slaughter, older adult or not. So it's cool to kind of get some of this out there in the wind and get it out of industry speak, where we're preaching to the choir when we're realtor to realtor. So for us to be talking, Laura and me, we're triangulating here and we're getting all this out in front of you. That move manager over the decades has gotten wise to it, and she will stick her nose in, which is a risk. Because then, or is that intrusive? That person was there also as a vendor, as a salesperson, and could have, offended her client. So we're all at risk when we get on our soapboxes. I like to sleep at night. And I feel like at least if I lose business or somebody's offended, at least I'm sleeping at night, and we're true to ourselves as professionals. So.
And I appreciate this, Victoria, because I didn't know how the Cash for Houses did it. I knew there was something, but I didn't know. So you taught me something today.
It's great. Take it and run with it all day long. And you'll be helping so many people just teaching this course. And I managed to do it in less than the 20 minutes it took us to get through it with the doc. So back into the granular of real estate gone wrong.
Victoria, I
Yes,
do
sir.
have a question. Rolling
Yes.
back a little bit.
Yep.
We've been in our house for like 40 years and probably one day are going to want to sell it. In your opinion, which is the best way, if finances are no object, to try to sell it? Move out first, sell it, sell it empty, stage it, bring in furniture. What is the most optimal way to do that?
I think that with if you take the person out of it and you say, this is truly just going to be a conversation about real estate, I will always go to the mat that I love it when people can move out first and then sell. Because to me, that is the kindest and gentlest to the human being, whatever the age they are. Nobody really thinks it's fun to have a house that's got to be pristine every minute of the day, to be getting incoming appointment calls, and you've got to, vacate the house and scurry out and make yourself scarce and wait, and lurk until the agents have gotten through and taken the people back out the door. I don't sugarcoat. I mean, it's no fun. And add advanced age, add older old to that scenario, and it actually becomes kind of a health and safety thing, not only physically having to get out of the house, but also the stress level. And of course, we're in pandemic. So that would be my top shelf. If you said, take all that off the table, just tell me about the bricks and mortar piece. I do bow to the statistics that exist about staging. If they say that a staged house looks more attractive, you make it look like a builder model. There's a whole psychology to that. And the outcome is that it sells faster and it sells for more money. I can't fight that. So then I'm into my hybrid thing where I say, maybe what you do is, hire the realtor, get the stager in there, execute the staging, take the pictures, and then maybe do that thing, start to dismantle it and get out of Dodge. And you're actually selling it. People are coming to see it vacant and empty. But what lured them in was the pictures online and the pictures in the brochure, which were this builder model type staged house. So you're having your cake and eating it too. And I think that is probably, I'm going to bow to the realtors in the room to see if they want to add anything. I welcome the collaborative, get more heads are better.
Yeah.
Well,
I would just add, go ahead.
let me just expand on the question there, going into my particular area. And that is, let's assume I move out. Do I want to leave the house empty? Do I want to bring in furniture and stage it?
I'm against bringing furniture in. When people have, like a $2.3 million house that's empty and vacant, sometimes that buyer does respond to staging, and those companies that actually bring, mid-century modern in and zhuzh it all and make it amazing. For me, I'm a little bit more down to earth. One of the tools that many of the real estate companies use now is virtual staging. So you can have, the computer generated stuff dropped in, and it's amazing. And it even creates a shadow on the carpet when they put the little sofa and the potted plant in there. I just can't get out of my own way in terms of my advocacy for, again, working with nothing but older adults. I say, get out of Dodge, sell it empty and vacant. If possible. And, if you want to put the time and effort in, do the staging, because there is a benefit to that. The contrarian part of people who are buyers responding to an empty and vacant house, they're not seeing somebody's stuff. They're not seeing it even staged. They say, boy, this is empty, vacant, ready to go. I looked at 3 houses. I'm going to take the empty, vacant one because I can see it. I can understand it. I can get right in there. That's a conversation I've heard a lot of times over the years. So
Based on that, I'd like to hear some other realtors give their input.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I do like the idea of the virtual staging. I agree with Victoria. If you can move out, I prefer that. I've done houses where we did stage it, and it happened to be a small condo, and it did need it. But then I've done townhouses, and we did fresh paint and cleaned it up really nice. Thank you, Meryl. And it showed beautifully. I also like your idea, Victoria, of if you're going to stage it, get your pictures with the staging in place, but don't buy into multiple months of paying those costs if you don't have to. But I do like the virtual. I love your comment about making sure that if it is staged, to keep it safe for the occupants.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Michael, I'll throw one more twist in it. My comment about put in $1 and get back $2. One of my favorite stories, and it's fairly recent, is that we had a 94-year-old lady who wanted to sell as is. She was adamant. And, you know, again, the challenge to say, can we sit down and just get our presentation out to you? Because that's our fiduciary to you. Long story short, the sale price would have been $245 as is. It was a 1970s time capsule, with all respect. We showed her the numbers for what we, you know, believed we could get her if she renovated. She renovated, we put it up for sale at $435. We got her $470.
Wow.
After the cost of the renovation, we brought her $165,000 more than she would have gotten selling as is. You know, she owned it free and clear. So just mind-boggling. And she didn't want her family to know what the house sold for, because she was so, you know, enriched with cash by the process. So, you know, it's a challenge for me, because when it starts to sound like it's too good to be true, and, you know, you have to suspend your disbelief and really sit there and just take the time to dig through it. You know, the collaborative thing. I mean, I had somebody where she was polio, talk about vaccines, you know, and polio, and pre-vaccine, she was chair-bound from age 18 for polio. She was living in a fantastic independent assisted living home. And the homeowner, you know, the care owner reached out to us and said, Houston, we got a problem. This lady had basically squatters who were acting like, you know, some kind of religious organization in her wonderful condo. And she, you know, she needed to sell the condo to stay in the black with her assisted living care provider. So we had the sheriff, we had the elder law, we had the elder fraud and abuse consult, we had the contractor who deferred his costs to renovate until sold. We had the move manager who got in there and got everything out, you know, on remote on behalf of the lady because she couldn't traffic. And she held her ticket until close. I mean, the collaboration was insane. And I would say that, you know, the mere fact that we're all here this morning, we are those people. And the mere fact that we're all under the umbrella of service to seniors, and, you know, this organization is about doing it at a higher level in all the ways, integrity and collaboration and, you know, sharing, all that good stuff. I mean, I'm sure you guys have stories. You know, we should have like a storyboard one day where everybody comes and tells their most amazing story of collaboration and problem solving. It can look like that. Real estate for seniors can look like that. It was a hideous thing that we walked into, but boy, we left it smelling like a rose. My next card is talking about the listing contract. This is straightforward. Realtors come, they say, here's the listing contract. It's boilerplate. It's basically different only county to county. Montgomery County has a reputation for having the most rigorous of the counties in Maryland for that boilerplate listing contract. The fact that it's so thick, 40 years ago it was 4 pages and now it's 45 pages. I like that because everything that's in there, even the redundancy from federal to state with lead laws and that type of thing, it's consumer protection. And it's happened over time. The lawyers have gotten in there and made it better for the client. Here's what I don't like. They are not apple to apple. They are not boilerplate. They are not the same with the length of the contract and with the terms of canceling the contract. 2 separate things. So, you go like a lamb to the slaughter, you sign what they put in front of you, and you don't realize that now you're on the hook to be represented by them for a year. And that for you to say, it's not working, I don't like you, I need a fresh look, you're fired, that can be whatever the contract says, 90 days. So if you've got somebody that's given the realtor 6 months to sell the house, hasn't happened, and now they want to fire them and it's going to take another 90 days for that to roll off. Read that part of the contract, tell everybody that you're working with that is thinking about having to sell their house, great, interview 3 realtors and get woke to the fact that the listing contract will be put in front of you as boilerplate, but understand how they are different apple to apple. Look at the amount of time that you're, basically stuck with the provider if it doesn't work out, and look at the amount of time you're going to have to be able to give notice. We'll have people, I'm sure everybody, all the realtors We'll have people call us and say, I'm not happy, I want to make a change. And the first thing we say is take out that listing contract and see what you agreed to, because it is a contract. And then if it's hideous, we will go, professional to professional and say, look, they're unhappy, you're tarring the industry, will you let her go? And, sometimes that gets a good response, and sometimes it's hardball. So something to be aware of, something that, again, if you're a layperson, you don't realize that this is part of it. And once again, I welcome comment from the other realtors. Time of year is something that is fun to talk about at this time of year. I mean, we're now into the fourth quarter, we're going into the winter season, we're going into the holidays. When people finally get the nod from senior living that the place they've been waiting for is finally at the top of the list and it's their turn to come, or, heaven forbid, there's been a health event, a diagnosis, a bereavement, something has changed that's triggering a sale at this time of year. My joy is to come and to share that people are really upset, worst time of year to sell a house. The data shows otherwise. The data, layperson terms, what's going on is you've got less competition normally at this time of year. There are fewer houses on the market because everybody's thinking the same thing. Terrible time to sell a year. I'll wait till springtime, but I've got to sell my house now. Now what? Fewer houses on the market means fewer competition against your property. The people that are shopping for a house at this time of year, fourth quarter, through the holidays, through the winter, they are not out there kicking tires like a beautiful afternoon in April. They are out there because they have to buy a house. They've been transferred. They've just gotten married. They've just had a new baby. They've gotten divorced. So it can be a really, really good thing. It can be really counterintuitive. It can be really cool that, this time of year, somebody puts their house on the market and it can be gone in days, as if it was the spring market or that early fall market, which are kind of the top two stereotyped understandings of when it's good to sell a house. We'll have people who get really upset that they have a fantastic school district and they missed the market because now they're selling and it's after, August. And, we'll say, don't get hung up on that. A lot of times, even in a fantastic school district where you're assuming that's the draw, people don't have kids. They're not going to have kids. That's not part of the equation. So just kind of busting people's stereotypes a little bit in a really helpful, lovely way to calm down. And this can be great. And it's fun to talk about time of year at this time of year. Downsizing, my thing for that with respect to seniors real estate is I wish that I could get the word out there that it's never too soon to start, and that in my perfect world, people are downsizing, people have figured out where they're going to move, people are getting the house ready to sell, people are moving, and then people are selling. That's my dream. And so for people who wait and leave all those 5 pieces to all happen kind of contemporaneously, it's a train wreck. And again, I don't sugarcoat. I go back to Aesop's fables. You've got the ants and the grasshoppers, and the ants have everything caulked and they're ready for winter and the food's in jars and everything's ready. And you've got the grasshoppers who are out there, oh, summer, it's great, I'm fiddling, everything's wonderful. And that first frost comes and the grasshoppers are banging on the door of the ants, let me in, let me in. I love the ants. I want to be an ant. We love the grasshoppers. We will help the grasshoppers all day long. If you in this multidisciplinary conversation can get the word out to people, don't wait, bite that bullet, start downsizing, start getting that stuff ready, have that consult. If you're lucky enough to be able to hire professional help, do it now. Have the realtor come a year ahead of time. It's almost never too soon for the realtor to come. Realtors will figure out right before the trigger gets pulled what that sale price is going to be. It could go up $105,000. It could go down. The market changes. But the coaching on how to position that house and how to get yourself sorted and get yourself ready and poised to move. And, I've been brought in to consult by realtors who sold the house out from under the senior. Oh, we'll get your house. They're so focused that and it's wonderful. Get the sign on the lawn, get the buyers, get the top price. And then they're saying, this person is a senior and they don't know where they're going to go. So that is not cool, and that takes time. And then you get into a conversation about senior living and those choices. And if I've had a dime for every time I've had a conversation where the people say, oh, well, when we're ready, we're just going to move. So we say, okay, let's talk about CCRC. If there's a health barrier and a wealth barrier, let's hope that you're not playing Russian roulette with your health in terms of being assessed to be able to move to the community of your choice based on their business model. Then we say, okay, you've got the wealth, you've got the health, and you're telling me I'll do it when I'm ready. Do they understand, that there are occupancy rates, and that maybe if they've got their heart set on being on the first floor on the sunny southwest corner, that they can't assume, just like regular real estate, they can't assume that that's going to be ready and sitting there waiting for them when it's time to go. So I really coach people to get educated about senior living options, to understand the apples to the oranges, understand that once you slot into the apples, let's say CCRCs, each contract can be different to the other, and not to make any assumptions. So, the downsizing piece, I am high on move managers. I think their value is extraordinary. I think the pound of flesh comes off of somebody, and a lot of people either don't have kids who can or will help, have kids who are in Timbuktu. So the fact that there's a move management industry and a downsizing industry, to me, is something that's amazing. And I encourage people to learn all that they can about it. Comments, questions?
Well, I just have to say that I really appreciate your person-centered focus of your business, because for over a dozen years, I worked for Leading Age, which is a non-for-profit, and currently are working with Aging in Place. But I just have to say, the way that you're approaching the clients in this plan, and I know that Laura and Rebecca do the same, that it's so important, because you don't want to go in and take charge, but you want to lay it out in front of the older adult on what they can do and what their focus is. And I just really appreciate the way that you all are approaching it.
It's wonderful. Thank you for that feedback. Because, some days you go out and, if you have an appointment and it goes south, and they just, sometimes we're the whipping boy, probably in all of us here, because when people are older and things are happening, and, stress and grief, bereavement, all the different things that are baked into service to seniors, it can be challenging. And, as they say, older adults are free to make folly. So there's a lot of pain, when I walk out of an appointment and I think, they are in their own way, and things are happening, and all I can do is go and present and share all the information. One of the things that I do like to say is to kind of normalize a lot of this, and to also help them understand you can change your mind, we can move the needle. So an example of that would be where people say, I'm going to downsize myself, and I don't need this, and it's costly. And I say, oh, okay. And then, but to do it in a framework where if they call and say, you know what, I lost my mojo, I'm having a bad week, I'm having a bad month, I broke my leg, then we say, that's okay. We're here to help, and we'll just keep pivoting, and we'll meet you wherever you're at. And the reverse can be true in this topic of move management. People can say, my God, I'm going to need all the help. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm having an emotional breakdown, taking out my wedding dress and my christening, baby dress and all that. And then they're the ones who sometimes get the fire in their belly, and they're tearing it up. And then they say, I told the move manager I was going to need 40 hours and I only need 10. So, both of these things can be true. But just to normalize it, and to make it okay, and to let them know that we're all there to help each other, and we'll bring everything we've got individually and as the quiver full of arrows of all these different resources. When I talk about mover versus move manager, and you can't believe how in the real estate industry, 20 years into move management existing, I'm still out there trying to educate the realtors on my own team that a mover, we all know what a mover does. Hey, lady, where do you want the sofa? There's no discretion. There's no dispersal. There's no discernment. They just come and they pack it all up and they move it. It's great. It's fantastic. They do what they do, and it's wonderful. Move management, and explaining that they will do the space planning for where you're going into. They will help you figure out what you are keeping, what you are giving to friends and family, what you are going to be able to sell that actually has market value, and then give you the pathway to the buyers, to then have things that are going to donation, and to be the boots on the ground to get those things dispersed. And then finally, what's left is trash. I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of what move management can do for people. Cafeteria style, they can have it all. They can have some of this and none of that. And that, you know, the ones that are my favorites come and give the estimate, the consult for free, so that people aren't inveigled by just having that initial appointment. And then you've got the older adult who suddenly thinks, wow, I don't have kids. I can't ask my kids. My kids are too busy. My kids are old. I can't get this move done, and I can't just have a mover. I can't orchestrate this. When you start to educate older adults about move management, it can be magic, because, you know, if they haven't moved in 40 years, why would they even know that the service exists?
Victoria, is there
Yeah.
an organization or certification for a move manager?
Yes, great question. National Association of Senior Move Managers, NASMM, and I think they're going through a rebrand intentional to addressing the fact that this can be something that is not just germane to older adults. I mean, busy young professionals, you know, moving, you know, across the country with toddlers, they benefit from this service just as much as an older adult who is, you know, possibly an elder orphan who's having to handle it and get it all done. It's a universal thing. It's a fantastic umbrella organization, and what they are high on is making the people who belong to them go through all the hoops, you know, the license, the bonded, the insured, the trainings, the continuing education. So I am high on the industry, and then I'm high on the fact that the best ones belong to that umbrella organization. And that's, you know, it's a website that you can go and drill into. And just like the Care Manager Professional Association, you know, you can go into the national website and you can drill down by zip code, and you can see the array of providers that are right in your location. And then you can make a comparative study, you know, interview a couple of them, and do, as we all do in Business 101, you know, who does the best, bakes you the best apple pie, and where does the personality click. And it's a fantastic industry, fantastic resource. And sometimes they can hold their ticket until the house closes. So if all of this is hanging on the equity in the house, you know, people are retired, fixed income, they may not have deep pockets, or it may all be tied up in their portfolio. The fact that some of these services can be had just like real estate, doesn't get paid till the end, can really be a way to unlock the process for people. And even if you have millions, you know, cash flow can and should make people anxious. So it's kind of cool to have that conversation about that specific industry.
Victoria,
Yes.
can you make a promise to me now that you will continue to do what you're doing for at least the next 15 or 20 years, so that when I'm ready to move out of my house, you'll hold my hand? Because there's a lot of layers to this onion.
I'll do my best. I think I love this so much. You know, the day is not long enough, and there's not enough days in the week. I burn out for this. You know, you can hear the passion, and I know we're all here because we share that. It's meaningful. You know, we're not selling shoes with all the things that we're doing to help seniors. You know, I think we're actually really making a difference. So yes, I will do my best.
Please.
With that move management part.
I'll send you the contract.
Yeah. Just a couple pearls on the part of the conversation that goes about getting rid of and selling things. One of the things that is painful to me is to roll up to my consult, and people have really nice things. They've already let a picker come through, and a picker is the guy who comes through and knows what's the best, what's going to get the most money. And he's like an intermediary where he'll say, you know, you've got some antiques, you've got some really cool vinyl, you've got mid-century modern, whatever's hot. Those guys know what's hot and what they pay you for, and they'll pay a fair price. They're not trying to gouge or do anything wrong, but then they pivot around and they resell. So when people have a picker come and they sell the things to the picker, that's awesome. That's great. They got cash on the barrel. They have the satisfaction of selling things, and the things go out the door. So they're not having a secondary cost incurred, having a hauler come or having somebody come and move their things and paying on top of. Here's the rub. If that person had hoped to have an auction, had hoped to have an estate sale. They've shot themselves in the foot by letting the picker come in first, because the picker has taken all the juicy bits, all the things of value. And now when the auction guy comes into that scenario, he looks like the air got let out of the souffle, because he's thinking, well, I thought you had good stuff and somebody already took all the good stuff. So then they don't want to do your auction, or if they do your auction, there's no draw, and you're not going to be able to monetize the things that you do have that have been left behind. Another heartbreak is that, and this, I'll give you a good example from my own dad. He was very into antiques and China and porcelain and things, 18th century things. He bought high. The market changed because the taste changes, the fashion changes. So when he was having to sell, he was in a time of minimalism and mid-century modern. And I will tell you that I felt like the cost of the appraisal for what things were worth, so we did diligence to him, was probably more than what we sold the collections for. So just, the worm turns, taste changes. If you have auctioneers and pickers and estate sellers come through, have them all come through, have them all make their pitch, but hold your fire, hold on to everything until the last minute, and then decide. Because once that horse is out of the barn, you've lost your leverage there.
So glad you mentioned that, Victoria. I had my realtor hat from like the late 80s until 2012. And it amazed me how much accumulated worth people had that they didn't realize. They also had things from their husbands' pensions. I mean, majority of my senior clients were the widows. If I had a widower, it'd be great, because he was like gold. Everybody adored the widower, right? But
yes,
these widows, particularly if their husbands were doing everything, they didn't have the knowledge.
Yes.
To have never written a check, to don't have an understanding what a bank statement does. Are you still seeing that? It's
yes. And it's, and as we run out of time and run through time, happy to show you the card where I talk about money. And, I'm 57, money taboo. And people don't want to talk about it. And I don't want to be in their finances, and I don't have that qualification, but I am trained on where to drop the flags. So let me make a stereotype here. I walk into an appointment and we'll make it gender-based. It's the husband, the man is the one who has not only done the investments and the wealth management, but he is also the one who's writing the checks to the phone company and the power company. And so he has a stroke, or he finally has slipped into dementia to the point that he's not stringing it together, or he's dropped dead. And so you walk into that appointment and, Mrs. Seller is at her wit's end. She's not sleeping at night, anxiety off the charts, and to be able to, normalize it and to explain that there is, if we bring wealth management in, they can take a forensic approach and kind of, peel back the layers and figure it out and keep the wheels turning. And same with daily money management. And I feel as passionate about daily money management as I do about the move managers. Older adults do not know that this industry exists. There are a lot of people who either don't have kids that they don't want in their money, have kids who don't want to be in their money. And to help people understand that, now my spouse did all this, used to do it, can't do it anymore, and we've got the solution is pretty, it makes you look like a rock star, and it's a real thing. So that is, and I'll tell you, ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, but there is that human thing, we don't want to contend with our own mortality. It's not going to happen to us. We'll just, sing and die another day. And I always think, man, if people had just had the wealth guy or the daily money manager person come in ahead of the game, so it's not a forensic experience, and could have just kind of feathered, here's what we do, here's how we do it. Maybe then go away and maybe don't ever come back. Maybe we'll never need you, or maybe we're calling you tomorrow, or maybe we're calling you a year from now. But to have the wherewithal to get into those relationships, even in a, put your toe in the water kind of way, the benefit of being able to sleep at night for the client. So, I would say for all of you, as you make your way around, and you talk to all these different people in different scenarios, beat these drums, plant these seeds. The anxiety driven ones will hear you and will probably reach out and make those connections. And the grasshoppers, they just won't, but we'll all do what we do, which is circle those wagons and help them the best we can. And as my daughter-in-law always says, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But, there is a continuum of best outcomes and worst outcomes. That money management conversation, that can be a segue to talking about awareness of Medicaid spend down. If I bring that back to real estate, what's a realtor doing talking about this is that I will walk into an appointment and somebody is checking these boxes. They've got a lovely home, they're selling it. They're going to be cash rich. They are not moving to a continuing care retirement community, so they're not buying into the healthcare continuum. They don't have long-term care health insurance. They don't have a trust set up to protect their wealth, their assets, this new big windfall of cash. And they're excited and happy. And I feel like the Eeyore, that just came to the birthday party, because I'm saying to them, like, wow, I need to at least plant a seed that you are now exposed to having a catastrophic health event, to aging into needing high care. And Uncle Sam is going to take every bit of your money, and you won't even have a house to help shelter for the Medicaid spend down process. And, some people know about it from their experience with their own parents, or there'll be some kind of an inkling. I would say that probably 90% of the people that I start talking about this to don't know what I'm talking about. And then, the passion for pointing them towards elder law, estate plan, to just put a couple of main ideas out there, that Uncle Sam expects us to pay for our own care, and that it's a 5-year look back after you put things in trust, and that there are different ways to go about this. And that even if there's an emergent scenario, I'm driving down Route 29 and I get creamed, and now I'm brain injured and I'm going to go from the hospital into high care for the rest of my life. If the family knows to reach out to elder law, even in that emergent moment, that elder law can do some pretty magic things to protect and preserve whatever assets do exist. It's a hideous thing to talk about. There are people who just by their very nature, la, 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 they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it, but then that's the outcome that they're going to get. So I
I'm
guess.
so glad you said that, because I've had 10 years plus of managing assisted livings. The stories that I hear, oftentimes they're broke because they had to pay for medical stuff for the other spouse.
Yes.
And they were prepared for that, or, particularly if it was a long chronic thing, cancer or something where you're just bleeding money, they've already eaten through the assets of the house.
Yes.
There just isn't anything. And by the way, guys, the average monthly cost in our area, now I'm in the Annapolis area, is probably pushing $6,000 a month. That's the average.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel for people. What I've noticed is a growing interest in people who are in that little pocket. They're moving over to trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't afford the regular assisted living. A CCRC would be way out of their budget. And so I'm just curious, have you noticed that? And the problem is that the counties, they don't want the trailers. They see them as eyesores and there's no value. So where do people go who?
Yes, yes to all of that. One of the things that I am very proud to be doing in addition to my day job is to be one of the newer commissioners on aging in Howard County. And so to be in those commission meetings and to hear the pro and con of the conversation around ADUs, so the accessory dwelling units, that's become a nationwide conversation. People are passionate, both pro and for and against, for all the different reasons. I've got clients right now who are in their 4th year of trying to get one approved out in Seattle so they can move out to their kids out there. I was in a meeting last month with a daughter in Frederick who has acreage and who claims that she has been approved for it. And they're considering having a new build accessory dwelling unit, a tiny house, put on her acreage so her mom can move to her property. I just attended a presentation. Some of you guys might have been in it. It was Maryland based, but it was, PhD level statistics being presented on the next 20 years, so from now to 2040, and they did it by each decade of age, so 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80 age groups, and then they did it by race, ethnicity. So one example was that by 2040, the incidence of older adults who are Hispanic, they will have increased by 500% as renters. So what that's telling you, people can't afford to own a house, people can't afford to maintain a house, people can't afford the tax burden as they age, and then people sell the house, and then what? So one of the, the agitators in the presentation said, okay, you're saying that it's just going to be that they all turn into renters. Homelessness, anybody? I mean, renting is extraordinarily expensive and sometimes so disproportionately expensive to the cost of owning. You buy a house, you stay in it long enough, your mortgage ends up either being paid off or peanuts compared to a rental fee for the same property. So it was pretty, the word dire was used a couple times in that presentation. The incidence of older adult multi-gen housing is back in vogue. Apparently ever since World War II, we've been, sort of on this Kool-Aid that, we came back from World War II and everybody turned 18 and launched and had their own roof and everybody was living as, separate family units, nuclear family. And now we're looking at it's pivoting back to the highest number of kids who are 25 to 34, moving back in with their parents. Older adults are selling their houses and moving in with their middle-aged kids. We can't find the master, first floor masters and the in-law suites. I mean, the demand is so great. So I think that what we have seen since World War II is actually going to turn out to have been the blip. I think that it's going to pivot back to how it used to be before that nuclear family, everybody lives separately expectation because economics, it is cost, the cost of doing it that way is insane. So that's what I have to say about that.
Victoria, I think we are so enjoying this presentation that we bumped right up against the 10 o'clock hour. This has been so phenomenal. I wish I could convey properly. I just can't get the words out that how absolutely delightful this has been. So a huge, huge, huge thank you. You've opened up our eyes and peeled back a lot of layers of onion.
Thank you. It's my joy. I'm sure I cause people's eyes to glaze over because I really can nerd out on this pretty hard. Get powers of attorney. That's like, I should have, I buried the lead as usual. And one of the things I always talk about for the realtors, if the client does not have a power of attorney and something hideous happens from the time the house has gone under contract prior to the house being closed, that realtor can't close that sale because that tool to close the sale, that legal instrument is not there. I don't care if you're marooned in Canada, if Baltimore's computer system has gone hostage, if it's pandemic, if it's a stroke. So people really don't like that I come as a sales call through real estate and I'm talking about get a power of attorney, get a power of attorney. Age 18 and up should have one because none of us know what's going to happen. And I get thank you notes years later that have nothing to do with the real estate and the sale of the house. Who cares? But they're saying you got in our faces and said, get our dad power of attorney. And damn if we didn't need it. He got sick and for the last 6 months, that's the only thing that made life bearable. That horse gets out of the barn, you can't get it. Capacity changes, you can't get it. So for a very small cost to go out and get power of attorney, make sure there's a succession plan. So when the middle-aged son drops dead because mom's in memory care and he was the only power of attorney, yay, he had power of attorney, but he dropped dead, there's no successor. Now we're all the way back to guardianship. Get powers of attorney.
Victoria, we're going to need you for another hour.
However,
Where are you at?